FitLabPGH is a Pittsburgh-based podcast and promoter of the idea that movement is a lifestyle, not just an activity. We are encouraging people to think of movement as the norm and not the abnorm. And one of the things that people have a tendency to do is they want to crush it, or they want to do their 2 or 3 times a week workout, and then they don't do anything the rest of the time. We want to promote the idea that you accumulate movement throughout the day, walks, jogs, doing a little bit of activity, even petting the dog who knows she's going to the park in a few minutes. And one of the things that we know from listening to some of our Moving to Live experts, our sister podcasts, Don Moxley, Marcelo Aller, is one of the most important, if not the most important fitness tool or piece of equipment or toy that you can buy is a heart rate monitor. You've got a variety of options out there. You can get a heart rate monitor that's on your wrist, which is a watch. This is a Coros watch that is heart rate. Polar makes one. I believe Suunto makes one. They're a good starting point, but you have to remember that if there's a lot of wrist movement or a lot of gripping with your hand, it doesn't give a very accurate result. If you're just going to lie there flat and meditate and look what it does to your heart rate, that can be a good use of a wrist-based heart rate monitor. I've had times where I'm spinning down the road on my bicycle, holding the handlebars with a fairly strong grip because, Pittsburgh roads. And I looked down and my heart rate's 175 beats a minute, which there's no way it was doing that because I wasn't working that hard. So the most accurate way to measure your heart rate is with a heart rate chest strap. You can pick them up for anywhere between $40 and $80. The nice thing about it is if you've got a watch that picks up heart rate, you can probably use a chest strap or a arm strap that we'll talk about in just a minute, but only if it's a Bluetooth or ANT compatible. And Polar makes an H10 heart rate monitor strap for the chest. This is a Wahoo, and the arm strap is made by Mio. Check out Moving to Live's podcast with Marcelo Aller. He works for them. And what they allow you to do is you put the chest strap on, and whether you're reading the heart rate off your watch or a variety of apps on your phone, you're able to measure your heart rate and record your heart rate. One of the favorite things that I like to do with measuring heart rate is I like to measure it for 2 or 3 minutes when I get up in the morning with one of these devices. And the reason I do that and I track it is I can see what's my heart rate doing. I know that if I went out and had a couple of beers, this is pre-COVID, the night before, my heart rate's going to be elevated. If I have a meal late in the day, I know my heart rate's going to be elevated. And one of the interesting things I've noted for those of you who follow FitLab Pittsburgh on a regular basis, we used to have Emma, the chocolate lab, who had epilepsy. Miss her every day, but one of the things that I found is my morning heart rate is lower. I have less stress because I'm not waking up in the middle of the night worried that when she turns over, she's having a seizure. Most of us want to crush our workouts, and we'd much rather have an idea of when we're going too hard and try to make the majority of our time easy aerobic workouts, 50-55% of your max estimated heart rate, up to maybe 70%. If you train in heart rate zones, zone 1 or zone 2 should be the maximum time, or the maximum time that you spend when you're doing aerobic exercise. And then the cherry on the top, the high intensity workouts, the heavy resistance training, etc. Again, we're talking non-athletes for health and wellness, is the smaller amount. So I mentioned the disadvantage of the wrist heart rate monitor pickup. The chest heart rate monitor pickup I mentioned is the most accurate unless you're going to do EKGs, which you're not going to do unless you're in a hospital. It has the disadvantage of you have to wet it, you have to strap it around your chest, underneath your shirt if you're a woman, underneath your bra, and it has the tendency to slide down, and it's just not always that comfortable to wear. That's why a good in-between, not very accurate, really accurate, but literally a pain in the chest, is the arm strap. This is from Mio. I know Polar makes one. I like the Mio one for a couple of reasons. First of all, the battery life is pretty good. Second of all, the charging port is very easy to use. And third of all, it picks up with my Coros watch, and then when it syncs over to Strava, I'm able to see what my heart rate was at different times when I'm doing different types of running and biking. This can be worn either on the arm, actually the forearm, or it can be worn up here. And when you press the button, this is the really cool thing that I learned this summer. When it's picking up heart rate, you get a flashing blue light. The way I realized that it did that is I was going through one of the tunnels on the Rails to Trails, and I looked down at my arm in the dark tunnel, and it was flashing. You can also set it up if you use the Mio program, which comes as an app for your iPhone or your Droid, so that your heart rate zones have different colors when it's picking up heart rate. probably one of the most accurate or the best ways to do it because it's not as much of a pain as putting on a chest strap. It's much more accurate than this, and it gives you a much better way to make sure you're not crushing it all the time, because none of us crush it all the time. As one of my clients said in the past, he said, this thing about getting older when they talk about needing more recovery, it's actually true. So our goal is to make movement a lifestyle, not an activity, and make it the norm, not the abnorm. So don't crush it. Check out your heart rate and let us know what you do for your favorite movement activity in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area.